Welcome back to Restore America. I'm Jeff Wilson. Picture it, Texas, 1975. An actor visits Austin's oldest theater and learns that it faces demolition. He becomes its biggest advocate for restoration and devotes most of his time and energy into bringing the once grand venue back to its glory. In the process, the theater and his life are forever changed. John Bernardoni has always had a love for the theater. Shakespeare may have written "All the world's a stage," but John Bernardoni lived it. No matter what city he was performing in, John felt right at home as long as he was acting. By the mid-1970s, he was living in Austin, and the local Paramount Theater was in trouble.
At the time, of course, the Paramount was not in good shape at all. But if you find a Hope Diamond in the dirt, it's easier to polish it off than it is to try to find another Hope Diamond.
John's attitude about polishing this dusty diamond prompted him to lease the theater with a vision of restoring it. But the Paramount had been altered several times and was left with a lot of problems.
During the movie days, they had totally revamped the theater and had done things, taken off the opera boxes. The plaster had, just through age, had started cracking, just disrepaired and hadn't been kept up to any of the grand days during when it was built.
Undaunted, John continued with his plans. With Catherine's help, they set out to restore the once grand 1915 Paramount Theater. The night before John took over the lease and started the restoration, he pulled on a rope behind the stage and couldn't believe his eyes.
And here we were presented with the original painted pastoral fire curtain that was put in 1915, and it was as though it was brand new because it had never seen the light of day, so therefore it really hadn't discolored. And it was one of those things that you never think that you're going to find, and it was just a wonderful jewel to come upon.
John and Catherine were more sure than ever that he had made the right decision. With an added spring in their step, they began the restoration.
The marquee has been replaced several times over the years, and it's gone through several phases and disrepair. So during the research phase in the 70s, we looked back at all the original photographs and tried to return it to this original phase. We went through, actually built and installed more than one marquee to get back to what we wanted, and what we have now is finally the great marquee that we need on the Paramount. But it took a lot of research and it took more than one application.
The marquee was essential to reclaiming the former glory of the Paramount's facade. But inside, the most important and most time-consuming project lay ahead, replacing what made the theater a true theater, its opera boxes.
We found an old photograph of the theater that showed opera boxes, 6, 3 on each side, but when we took the theater over, they were not here. And it was a tremendous task, as you can imagine, to go back and put steel in this theater in the proper configuration. But more importantly was finding somebody who actually was a plaster artisan who could come in here and duplicate what was there around this steel membrane. And we found this man. He was like 82 years old, and this guy was a wizard with plaster. He went all over the theater. He made molds of all the various configurations and the looks and the types of plasters. This went on for like, 8 months or something. But he absolutely nailed perfectly the boxes as they were, and here they are today.
That same craftsman recreated hundreds of plaster details throughout the theater that had been lost over the years. But before the theater was reopened in 1980, John and Catherine knew their audiences would need a place to sit. The 1950s seating was completely worn out.
So we started researching what to replace them with, and original seats were, of course, the nice wooden seats. Turned out that it was pretty impossible to go back to the wood seats, so what we ended up replacing them with the metal seating, but on the end, making the iron end pieces, and then we had the painters come in and do the elaborate painting that you'll see as you walk down the aisles. And the final seats that we ended up with look as close to the original seats as possible.
Through the 3-year restoration, John fell more and more in love with the Paramount. But that wasn't all he fell in love with. He was struck by the talented young architect that had been working by his side, Catherine Lott.
I called her And I said, you want to go out, and it took a while for her to kind of warm up to the idea. But eventually, we were married in Rome at St. Peter's, and we've been married for 20 years. We have a son named Rocco, and I guess that may be the biggest gift of all that I got out of the deal.
Working on the Paramount Theater was one of the really most exciting projects of my architectural career. Not only did I get to participate in restoring one of the most wonderful theaters in the Southwest, I also got to meet the man of my life.
I knew in my heart that this theater was worth preserving. And it's a tremendous historical legacy for Austin and the capital of Texas. You cannot build another Paramount Theater. I do believe that no one will ever let this theater go down again.